off their schedule at this point. They won a couple of days ago in Brooklyn. They win today in Charlotte in a matinee in Charlotte. Tipped off at 10 Pacific, 1 p.m. local out there in Charlotte. Steph Curry's hometown. I guess technically not his hometown. Born in Akron, Ohio, but raised a lot in Charlotte with Dell playing, of course, so many years for the Charlotte Hornets. But a homecoming for Steph Curry. He rarely loses those. He got the win today, 26 points for Steph Curry. Warriors win 132-125. Welcome into Warriors Wrap-Up here on 95.7 The Game. Happy New Year's Eve. Mark Randy with you, and we've got kind of an extended edition of Warriors Wrap-Up today. And I'm going to apologize. I guarantee you I'm going to say, when referring to today's basketball game, I will say tonight because it's force of habit. Normally the Warriors play night games. They played a morning game and an early afternoon game, so apologies when I invariably say, what a performance tonight by the Warriors. That's going to happen. But with the early game schedule and the holiday coming up, I've got you covered until 3 o'clock on Warriors Wrap-Up. An extended Warriors wrap-up. We're going to talk, of course, about what happened in this game, and then we're also going to get into kind of bigger picture Warriors stuff as we're at the end of the 2025 portion of the 25-26 season. As you heard Tim Roy, voice of the Warriors, just say, the Warriors 18-16 now. They're back to 2 games over 500. They've won 5 of their last 6 games, and they're getting ready to fly home, and they're not going to leave the state of California until more than 3 weeks from now. Thursday, January 22nd is the next Warriors game, not in California. 10 of the next 11 are at home, and the one game that's on the road is versus the Clippers down in L.A. You have OKC and Utah at home, then you're in L.A. versus the Clippers, then all of these games at home. Milwaukee, Sacramento, Atlanta, Portland, New York, that's the Knicks, Charlotte, Charlotte, Miami, and then Toronto. That is the homestand coming up for the Warriors, so get some home cooking going. We'll talk about that. We'll do some New Year's resolutions as well for the Warriors, so if you have thoughts based on what the Warriors have done so far to this point in the season through 34 games, what their resolutions should be, you can give me a call and let me know about that as well. We'll officially do that a little bit later on, but if you want to get those in now, we can certainly do that as well. The number to call, as always, is 888-957-9570. That is also the Boxer and Gerson Work Injury Attorneys text line if you want to weigh in there. And as always, I've got the YouTube chat up, youtube.com/957 The Game if you want to weigh in there. I already see the comments coming in on YouTube from No, from Carlos, from Chris, from Empire, from a number of others. Also, the 650, the 408, 415, all chiming in on the Boxer and Gerson Work Injury Attorneys text line as well. So we'll get to all of that before we wrap up here on Warriors Wrap-Up. Again, an extended edition of Warriors Wrap-Up tonight. Okay, today. See, I already did it. Tonight. It is not tonight yet. It is the early afternoon. But force of habit there. Warriors normally play in the evening. Okay, Warriors win 132-125 over the Hornets. This was a game that featured a lot of runs, and honestly, for the majority of the game, it was pretty darn concerning because the Warriors were putting together one of their better shooting nights of the entire game, or of the entire season, and they could not pull away from the lowly Hornets. And you can point to what have been hurting the Warriors all season long as the reason. It was the turnovers. The Warriors were much better in the second half taking care of the basketball. At least it was fewer live ball turnovers. But for the majority of this basketball game, they just could not get out of their own way with turnovers. Just look at the first half numbers for the Warriors. The Warriors in the first half shot 59.5% from the field. All right, so just about 60% from the field. They made 13 threes in the first half. They ultimately made 11 more in the second half, so the shooting continued basically the entire game. They were 13 for 24 from deep in the first half. That's a three-point shooting percentage of over 54%. Charlotte was not shooting poorly by any stretch. They were just a tick under 50%, and they were at 40% from deep. You'll take that if you're Charlotte. But the Warriors were thoroughly out-shooting them both from the field and from deep. Yet, at halftime, the Warriors were only up by 5 at 69-64. And if it wasn't for a 10-2 run to close that first half, they would have been trailing despite shooting as well as they did. Well, let's point to turnovers as the reason why the Warriors wasted, at least, comparatively speaking, relatively speaking, they wasted one of their best shooting halves of the entire season. They committed 11 turnovers in the first half, and Charlotte scored 19 points off those 11 turnovers. They had a 19-8 edge in points off of turnovers in the first half. Over the course of the entire game, they had a 28-7 edge in points off of turnovers. So again, in the first half, it was 19-8. So that's plus 11 for Charlotte in the first half, points off of turnovers. They finished the game plus 9, also plus 11. So it was even in the second half. And that's kind of what I was talking about. It wasn't as big of an issue in the second half, specifically in the fourth quarter when the Warriors kind of pulled this game away from the Charlotte Hornets. But through the first 2.5, 3 quarters of this basketball game, turnovers was the Warriors' bugaboo once again. They could not get out of their own way with turnovers. And it was why Charlotte was in this game. Because you're sitting there, and I would imagine you guys are all smart basketball fans. I imagine we're kind of thinking similar things, watching the Warriors and the way they're shooting the basketball. What Guy Santos was doing, 3 for 3 from deep in the first half, was 4 for 4 from the field in the first half. Finished this game 5 for 6 and 3 for 4 from downtown. He was awesome, and we're going to talk about Guy coming up in a little bit as well. You had Quentin Post, who I think made 3 of 5 threes in the first half, or maybe even in the first quarter. I'd have to go back and double check that for you. But he was draining threes. You had a lot of players that were making their open shots in this game, yet the Warriors could barely create any separation between themselves and the Hornets. And that's concerning, because the Warriors often have been a team that creates good looks and just can't get the looks to fall. But you kind of always sat there and told yourself, well, if Moody could just consistently hit threes, if Podziemski, he's kind of doing it quietly, today was more of a louder shooting game for Podziemski because he made 3 threes in rapid succession to begin the fourth quarter, which was really, really key for the Warriors, who were kind of stuck in the mud at that point. Charlotte had just gone on a 32-12 run to erase a 15-point Warrior lead and get back ahead by 5. So that was a dangerous spot. And then Podziemski responds by making 3 threes in rapid succession to kind of stabilize the Warriors in the fourth. And then they also got, a big 3 from Draymond Green, a big tip in from Draymond Green. Steph helped, of course, seal the game with a big 3, as he tends to do, specifically in Charlotte, which is one of his favorite places to play. But despite all of that shooting success for the Warriors, and again, I'm focusing a little bit more on the first half, they could not gain any ground on Charlotte. They could not pull away. They were up by 5 at half thanks to a 10-2 run to close the half. But for the most part, it was Charlotte up by a couple, Warriors up by a couple, and the whole game just kind of ping-ponged, yo-yoed between there in the first half. It changed in the second half because the Warriors opened on a gigantic run in the third quarter. Then Charlotte, that 32-12 run, as I mentioned, and then it kind of circled back to the Warriors in the fourth quarter. But in that first half, it was the Warriors getting great shots, and for the most part, their shooters taking advantage and making those shots. But you look up at the scoreboard, looking at the Warriors shooting 60% from the field just about, yet they're down by 2 points, is kind of the story of that first half, and it's because of those turnovers. And even in that run that I mentioned for the Warriors, which began the third quarter, and this was the run that coincided with the end of the second quarter, when the Warriors closed the first half on a 10-2 run, then opened the third quarter on a 10-0 run. What was happening during that combined 20-2 run was still more turnovers, believe it or not. And we're not just talking about some of the others, doing questionable things, making mistakes. We're not talking about a rookie and Will Richard making a rookie mistake, which happens, but Will's honestly been really good in that regard. I'm not even talking about that. Though there are understandable turnovers, and then there are just simply cannot even wrap my head around why somebody would make the passes the Warriors are making. But so there's this moment where the Warriors are in the middle of that 20-2 run early third quarter, and they get a defensive stop. And this happened twice with 2 different players. The first one, I believe the first one was Steph Curry, and he got like a quick outlet pass after the Warriors got a stop, and then looked to throw like a full court pass up the floor. And like the Warriors in a little bit of a fast break, but based on the angle that Steph was throwing that pass, there was no chance for that ball to get through. And it's an easy interception for Charlotte, and then they have, numbers, and they're going fast break the other way. And then a couple of moments later, Draymond Green does the same exact thing. After a defensive stop, he kind of wildly throws a full court outlet style pass that gets easily intercepted and picked off. And then again, Charlotte has, an opportunity to score the other way. Now, luckily for the Warriors, they did not score in those moments because, again, that was in the middle of that 20 or that 10-0 run. You add in the end of the first half, the 20-2 Warrior run. But still, we're talking about, even when things are going well for the Warriors, and they were in that moment, you're talking about just backbreaking, at times, frankly, mindless turnovers, and it's going to cost the Warriors. Those necessarily did not today because the Warriors actually got stops after those turnovers, but you do that enough, and we've seen this time and time again already this year, you do that enough, it's going to cost you games. The statistic that if you watch on the NBC Sports Bay Area telecast and you listen to Fitz and Buki, they've said this all road trip. The Warriors, 16 losses this season. 11 of those 16 losses have come in games in which they've led in the fourth quarter. So they have 11 losses this year where they have led in the fourth quarter. And that's where those turnovers come back and hurt you. It's why they cost you the game in Toronto versus the Raptors to begin this road trip, which is, by the way, the only thing standing between you and a 6-game winning streak is that loss in Toronto where the turnovers were their bugaboo once again. So when we talk about this turnover problem, I think a lot of people on the outside maybe think, well, they just don't have, enough of the other guys beyond the big three. And that could absolutely be true, and we're going to talk more big picture stuff coming up, and we can get into roster construction and what are they missing and what do they need, and that can kind of fit into our New Year's resolutions conversation for the Warriors. And again, that can all be fair, and that can all be true. And frankly, the roster does need, I think, some adjustments. But what I'm focusing on isn't, the Buddy Hield mindless turnover, and he's, not playing, right? He's kind of been relegated to break glass in case of emergency duty. Melton was out, Hield played. Melton returns, Hield likely not going to play. Did not play in this game today. Hield and Kuminga, the only two DNP CDs. That did not play, coach's decision. The only two that were available to Steve Kerr, and Steve Kerr did not call upon them. Hield and Kuminga. It's less about those others making, a wayward decision, and it's more about Steph Curry and Draymond Green committing far too many turnovers. And again, not turnovers out of aggression that you can understand. Turnovers where you're kind of pushing the envelope because if this pass pays off and it's maybe, a little bit of a dangerous pass, but if I sneak it through and I make a perfect pass, it's an easy 2 points. Those are ones you can understand a little bit. But it's the ones where, again, you have the ball in the backcourt after a defensive stop and you just kind of mindlessly throw the ball 30 feet up court, and it gets easily picked off. And that's Steph Curry. That's Draymond Green. That's those guys that are committing those mistakes. And, tonight, I caught myself. Today, Draymond Green, I thought he had a really good basketball game, besides a couple of really bad turnovers. But Draymond flirted with a triple-double in this game. 10 points, 8 rebounds, 12 assists, but 4 big turnovers. Steph Curry scored 26 points. Was 9 of 16 from the field, 5 of 10 from deep. Shot it well, as he seemingly always does in Charlotte. But guess what? He turned the ball over 5 times. We're going to celebrate this win. The Warriors are 5-1 in their last 6 games, but there are still a lot of issues. A lot of issues here. And as far as the turnover conversation goes, I don't want to look too far down the line. I think we should focus on the guys, the dudes. And those dudes, Steph Curry, Draymond Green, to a lesser degree, Jimmy Butler, although he had 3 today. I think you kind of want your guys that have the ball super often. You're okay with 3 turnovers. Anything above that, you're kind of thinking it wasn't your best day protecting the basketball. And, of course, not all turnovers, again, are created equal. But in general, you get 4 or 5 or more turnovers, and you're going to look at that and say, I shouldn't have that many. 3, when you have the ball as often as those guys do, that's a little easier to swallow. But 4 or 5 or more, that becomes difficult. But I don't want the turnover conversation to go to, well, the rest of the roster isn't good enough. That could absolutely be true. But this turnover conversation begins with the dudes, with the big 3. I don't think the big 3 have been as good at that so far this year. And they need to be better, because if they're not, then I don't know how the Warriors are going to dig out of this little bit of a rut they find themselves in the Western Conference standings, where, again, now despite winning 5 of 6 games, they're still sitting pretty darn comfortably in the 8th spot. Like, it takes a lot to climb, and we saw this last year. The Warriors were about a 500 team when they acquired Jimmy Butler, then went whatever it was, like 23-8 to close the season, and they still didn't even make the top 6 in the West. They were still a play-in team. Like, it takes a lot to climb. So it's going to take sustained, really good play to climb out of the 8th seed, get to the top 6, which is what the Warriors' goal should be once again. Right now, you're 3.5 games behind the T-Wolves and the Lakers, who are tied for the 5th and 6th spots. So that's not a gigantic number, and there's only one team between you and those two teams, and it's the Phoenix Suns. Like, you can absolutely do it, but it's going to take a long, sustained stretch of good play, and that begins with Steph Curry and Draymond Green taking care of the basketball. Now, with that said, like, the Warriors' turnovers were an issue today. They turned the ball over 19 times. Charlotte scored 28 points off of those turnovers, yet the Warriors still scored 132 points, and they won a game on the road. It was their 3rd game in 4 nights. I'm sure they're tired. And they got a win, and now they've won 5 of their last 6 games, and things are feeling a little better. I think you can feel the momentum shifting a little bit. I think you could kind of sense the Warriors were tasting the long stretch at home, which is coming up. Again, 10 of the next 11 games are at home. The one road game is only a quick flight down to LA versus the Clippers. I think the Warriors maybe trying to grab some energy, knowing that is the stretch that's coming up, and they use that to win this 4th quarter, where they outscored the Hornets by 9 in a game in which they win by 7. They were trailing going into the 4th, and they won the game with a really good 4th quarter. They buckled down defensively. Hornets scored 30 points in the first, 34 in the second, 36 in the third, and then just 25 in the 4th when the Warriors buckled down and won this basketball game with a 34 to 25 4th quarter edge. So I don't want to take away from, I think, what is, in general, a pretty good feeling moment for the Warriors. But just because they won does not mean that there aren't some warning flags still going up, and the turnovers are still a major, major warning flag. And it's just some of these mindless, careless, just not smart decisions with the ball in your hands that's really costing the Warriors at this point. All right, we'll talk more about some of the things that went well for the Warriors, because there's plenty of that. But let's go out to the phones here on Warriors Wrap Up. Mark Randy with you. If you want to join the conversation, 888-957-9570. That's the number to call. It is also the Boxer and Gerson Work Injury Attorneys text line. We've got an extended Warriors Wrap-Up today here on 95.7 The Game. I'm with you until 3 o'clock, and then we'll get on out of here. We'll all go our own ways and celebrate our New Year's festivities. But a 2-hour-long Warriors wrap-up coming up. So if you want to talk about anything Warriors-related, this is your forum. You can do so again, 888-957-9570. Up first is Shardol, who's in Las Vegas and wants to weigh in on this Warrior win. What's up, Shardol? You're on Warriors wrap-up.
Hey, Mark Grandy. I'm a big fan of 95.7 The Game. I listen to your show every time in the car after a Warriors win. Warriors get the win over the Hornets 132 to 125. I mean, it was not the sexiest win that but, win is a win. Like, I'll take a win, whatever. But, yeah, Steph Curry had a great game, 26 points. In his homecoming to Charlotte, his family was in attendance. That's always a really special moment for him, and seeing his family there, supporting him supporting him throughout the journey. Warriors are inconsistent, man. Like, they win, they lose. I mean, they got to, play better, limit the turnovers. But, yeah, this was a good win for the Warriors. I mean, on New Year's Eve, starting off the holidays on the right note. So, yeah, it was a good win. But what were your thoughts on the overall win today? And do you think that Warriors can, do a little better and toughen up and play a good brand of basketball?
Appreciate the call, Shardol, and Happy New Year's to you as well. In general, this Warrior win, the Warriors are at a point where, beggars can't be choosers. Like, you win a basketball game, you will take it. Doesn't matter if you win by 1 on the flukiest play at the final second, or you win by 30. Obviously, you want to limit minutes by your veteran guys, and blowing a team out would allow you to do that. But you're not going to, scoff at a win, even if it was, as Shardol said, not the sexiest. And today was not the sexiest, no doubt. But a win is a win. And you take the win and you move on. You fly back home. I don't know what the team's plan is for New Year's. I would imagine Steph is going to hang out in Charlotte even if the team is flying back. Maybe they're all going to spend the night and they're going to fly back tomorrow morning ahead of OKC coming up on Friday. But you eventually fly back home. You say, all right, we're winners of 5 of 6, and if it wasn't for our disastrous mistakes down the stretch in Toronto on Sunday, we would have be winners of 6 in a row, and we'd be 19-15. Like, things are feeling up. But on this game in general, I mean, I think you got a lot of positive contributions in this basketball game. So just run through some of the numbers here really quick. Steph Curry, 26 points, was 9 of 16 from the field, 5 of 10 from deep. It wasn't like a classic Steph Curry takeover. He had a little bit of a flurry late in the second quarter, hit like a circus shot from the free throw line area where he thought he got a foul drawn. They did not call it. Next possession, I think you could tell he was still a little bit frustrated by not getting that foul call. Takes a deep right wing three and hits it. And he's got the crowd in Charlotte oohing and aahing, and he's always got the crowd on a string. Like, he can draw their reactions like nobody else in the NBA. That was a kind of a mini Curry flurry. But that was part of the Warriors' 10-2 run to close the first half, which I think was big for momentum. They opened the second half with a 10-0 run. I think that was a direct result of how they closed the first half, and that was thanks to, in large part, Steph Curry. But Steph had himself, a classic Steph game. Jimmy Butler got to the line 12 times. The Warriors as a team only got to the line 17 times. This was another game from Jimmy where it was, when I'm needed, I will kind of take over and I'll look for my shot. But in large part, considering that all the other shots were falling, the Warriors make 24 threes. They shoot 49% from deep, over 55% from the field. This didn't feel like a game where Jimmy had to take over like for gigantic stretches of the game. I think he read that right. So he only got 8 shots up. A little misleading because 12 free throw attempts. If those fouls aren't called, those are like, 4 or 5 or 6 more field goal attempts for Jimmy. So it's not as if he disappeared. I'm not saying that at all. This was a game where I think he sensed he didn't need to be as assertive offensively. Now, with that said, still had 19 points, 5 rebounds, 7 assists. He was really good in this game as well. Let's see. I thought Brandon Podziemski had himself a really good game, and specifically what he did in the fourth quarter. Warriors are kind of just hanging around at the end of the third quarter. They're down by 2. It was 100-98. In fact, let's rewind a little bit. And as we're shouting out various Warrior players, you can give us a call, 888-957-9570, and give the player that you want to shout out. The player that I'm going to shout out right now is Brandon Podziemski. For my money, this was probably the most important stretch of the game. Before we get to what Pods did to begin the fourth, we have to figure out what happened in the third and why it was important. So Warriors go into halftime up by 5. They just closed on a 10-2 run, right? So they were down. They go on a 10-2 run. They lead by 5 going into the halftime break. They then open the second half on a 10-0 run. There was a Moses Moody layup, a Draymond Green fast break layup, and then Curry and Moody both hit threes. 10-0 run in the blink of an eye, although mixed in there were those 2 terrible turnovers, one by Steph, one by Draymond that I was talking about. But a 10-0 run, that's a 20-2 run over the course of the end of the second quarter and the beginning of the third quarter, and the Warriors go up by 15 points. And you're thinking, okay, like this might be the time. And in fact, I tweeted it out, and I was thinking for a bit, maybe I jinxed it because I said 20-2 Warrior run spanning the first and second halves, Warriors beginning to pull away in Charlotte because the way they were playing, the way they were shooting the ball, I just kind of felt like it was going to be too much for Charlotte to handle. And it kind of felt like I might have jinxed it because right after that, the Hornets eventually go on a 32-12 run. A 32-12 run, all of which came in that third quarter, and they erase the 15-point deficit, and they take a 5-point lead, 96-91 with 3 minutes left in the third quarter. 32-12 run over about 6.5 minutes of basketball. You know how bad that is defensively for the Warriors? 32 points for Charlotte in about a half a quarter. That's on pace to score like over 200 points if that pace keeps up over the course of an entire basketball game. Over 30 points in about half a quarter. That is crazy what the Hornets were doing offensively and what the Warriors were allowing defensively in that stretch. So the 15-point lead evaporated, all gone. All the momentum you had from the 20-2 run is gone. Suddenly you're down by 5 late third quarter. You then eventually, get a couple of points back, only down by 2 to begin the fourth. And the Warriors, as they tend to do now, open the fourth quarter with Steph Curry on the floor, which is a new wrinkle over the last couple of weeks. And I think it has been working because it allows the Warriors to get off to a better start to begin the fourth quarter. And that's what happened here, although it wasn't really because of Steph Curry. But this is the moment you're in. You're down by 2. You just had a 15-point lead that the Hornets erased immediately. You blink, and your 15-point lead is not only gone, but you're down by 5. And then you're kind of stuck in this area where you have to make a bit of a push. Otherwise, the momentum is going to continue to kind of build and build and build. The 5-point deficit becomes a 12-point deficit. And then you almost got to play perfect down the stretch. Well, what happened? Brandon Podziemski hit 3 threes in rapid succession. He hit a running one-footed 3 from the top of the key when he kind of got the ball at the last second of a shot clock. After, I believe it was an offensive rebound after a shot didn't hit the rim and kind of was forced to put it up. Got that one to go. Kind of lucky, but nice shot by Podziemski. Kudos. He had to hit it, and he did. He then hit one from the right corner. That gave the Warriors a 4-point lead. Then another 3 quickly after that gave the Warriors a 5-point lead. That led to a 13-4 Warriors run to begin the fourth quarter. They go up 7, timeout by the Hornets, and suddenly the momentum is right back on the Warriors' side. Now, it was not over at that point. The Hornets kind of pushed back, got back within a couple, but the Warriors ultimately salted them away late. But the big reason why they gained that lead back immediately and kind of erased that momentum that Charlotte had from their 32-12 run was because Podziemski said, you know what? I'm just going to hit a couple shots here. And he made 3. He finishes this game very efficient, 19 points, 6 of 9 from the field, 5 of 7 from downtown. I thought Podziemski had himself a really, really good game. And I said today was a little more loud scoring and shooting from Podziemski because of the moments in which they came. But you look, over the course of the entire season now, Brandon Podziemski shooting the basketball is shooting really good. He's 39.5% from downtown. Before today probably, takes that up to above 40%. 40% shooter from deep. What more could you ask for? What more could you ask for shooting the basketball? Podziemski shooting the ball has been really good this year, and today it shone through in clutch key moments for the Warriors, which was important. I don't know if they win this game. They probably don't without that quick little flurry from Podziemski to begin the fourth quarter. He was really good in that stretch. I thought he had a pretty good game otherwise, but specifically that stretch, he kind of revitalized the Warriors, gave them the momentum back, and they kind of used that to win the game in the fourth quarter. So a big game from Podziemski. Many others to shout out. I want to give Guy Santos a shout out, and we'll do that coming up in a little bit. Plus, I see a big smooth in Oakland. We will get to you on the other side as well. This is an extended edition of Warriors Wrap-Up. I'm with you until 3 o'clock today here on 95.7 The Game as we piece through this 132-125 Warrior win in Charlotte. The Warriors have now won 5 of their last 6. They're 2 games above 500, and they're headed home where they will basically never leave for the next 3 weeks. We'll talk more about that and more. Plus, again, Big Smooth's call and all of yours coming up next as Warriors Wrap-Up continues right here on 95.7 The Game.
Xfinity is the network you can rely on. Like a close friend who will give it to you straight. The friend who will tell you that new haircut, it's not great. Friends make sure friends get good haircuts. And Xfinity makes sure you get a good deal on Wi-Fi. Xfinity gives you reliable fiber-powered Wi-Fi at our best price. This holiday season through January 4th, get gig speed Wi-Fi for just $50 a month for 5 whole years. No strings, no commitments. Just super fast, reliable gig speed Wi-Fi with our best equipment and unlimited data included. Save yourself from questionable decisions and save over Verizon and AT&T. Xfinity. Imagine that. Restrictions apply. Requires paperless billing and auto-pay with stored bank account. Taxes and fees extra. Xfinity Internet powered by fiber and connected to premises by coaxial cable. Actual speeds vary.
What's good, y'all? It's Von Miller, Super Bowl MVP, SAG Master, and now your host of Free Reign. This is where NFL meets real talk. Every week, I'm bringing you inside the game, from locker room stories to league-wide headlines. You want football IQ, locker room insight, and real conversations with the people shaping the league? Welcome to Free Range with Von Miller, where nothing is off limits and every down counts. New episodes every Wednesday. Listen and follow Free Range with me, Von Miller, wherever you get your podcast.
Dan owed an unbelievable amount of money to the IRS.
I got behind on my taxes. It's a horrible feeling.
He was in denial.
And when I got those letters from the IRS, you wanted to act like they didn't exist.
Finally, Dan turned to Optima Tax Relief, the leading tax resolution firm. A-plus rated by the Better Business Bureau, they've resolved over $1 billion for their clients.
Optima got me a settlement with the IRS. These people are really people-friendly. It was every bit of a new lease on life for me.
The fast action and the great results made Dan's head spin.
I felt like I was in a dream, but it's real, and I have paperwork to prove it. They got the job done, and life is good.
For tax help you can trust, call Optima now for a free consultation.
If you're worried about what's going to happen with the IRS, stop worrying. Make the call now.
Call 800-568-6533. 800-568-6533. 800-568-6533.
Optima Tax Relief.
Testimonial from an actual client. Some restrictions apply. For complete details, please visit OptimaTaxRelief.com.
1-877 Cars for Kids. KARS Cars for Kids.
Hurry! It's your last chance to donate for 2025.
Donate your car today. 1-877 Cars for Kids. Donate your car today.
Ready to get rid of that old car? Donate it to Cars for Kids. Call 1-877-CARS-FOR-KIDS to reach a friendly live agent. Donation's super easy, and your car can be picked up as soon as tomorrow. Call us now, 1-877-CARS-FOR-KIDS. That's Cars with a K to donate your car today.
1-877 Cars for Kids. KARS Cars for Kids. 1-877 Cars for Kids. Donate your car today.
Hurry! It's your last chance to donate for 2025. Last chance! Donate now for a 2025 tax deduction.
The holiday rush continues at your California Ford dealers. The Ford year-end sell-a-thon is on. Now through January 2nd, get our best offers across the most popular Ford trucks and SUVs. From America's best-selling Ford F-Series trucks for 48 years, the legendary F-150 and Super Duty, to the Bronco family of SUVs for those who don't wait for adventure to begin. Plus, all-electric standouts like the Mustang Mach-E and F-150 Lightning. And Explorer and Escape, the perfect balance of comfort, capability, and everyday versatility. Get ready to power through whatever the season brings in a Ford. But don't wait. These year-end sell-a-thon savings won't last. The clock's ticking. The lots are moving. And these are the season's biggest savings on an incredible selection of Ford vehicles. Rush in before the sell-a-thon and the savings are over January 2nd. Get to your California Ford dealers today. Claim based on 1977 to 2024 calendar year industry reported total.
Running a business means wearing multiple hats. So if you're like me, you probably started out using your personal phone, taking client calls and texts nonstop. As my business grew, I needed something smarter. That's when I switched to Quo, the #1 business phone system. Quo works right on your phone or computer. No carrying 2 phones, no clunky landline, just one easy app you can try for free. Your team can share one number and handle calls and texts together like a shared inbox. Any teammate can jump into the conversation so customers get faster responses. And Quo's AI assistant summarizes your calls and responds to customers 24/7, so you never miss a lead or opportunity. All this starts at just $15 a month. That's basically 2 coffees. You can even keep your current business phone number. Find out why 90,000 businesses trust Quo. No missed calls, no missed customers. Try Quo for free at quo.com/sports. That's quo.com/sports to try Quo free. QUO.com/SPORTS.
Warriors will throw it into Butler on the far wing. Back to the basket. Up top to Draymond between the circles. Not guarded there. One dribble. P.J. Hall is checked back in for Charlotte. Ball goes to Butler. Butler on the right side. Takes it middle for spacing. Moody will cut through. Butler finds Curry. Curry bumping with Sexton. Takes a 3 off the dribble and buried it. Golden State starting the second half with a burst. They lead by 12.
Now back to Warriors Wrap Up on 95.7 The Game.
Yeah, Steph got loose a little bit there, late second, early third. That was part of that 20-2 Warrior run. They went up by 15 as a result of that, but I don't know how many of you out there, maybe this is like muscle memory kicking in and Warriors going a run like that in years of this, and it's been over a decade of it now, right? The Warriors' first championship season was 11 years ago. It was the 2014-2015 season. Warriors going a run like that and 20-2. Suddenly it balloons to like 45-17, and the game's over. So I was kind of thinking like this might be the run that puts it out of reach, but then Charlotte immediately responded. Not only did they get back in the game, they go on a 32-12 run all in the third quarter. They take a 5-point lead at one point, but the Warriors fought back in the fourth. They won that fourth quarter 34-25, and they win this game by 7, 132-125. They've now won 5 of 6. They're back to 2 games over 500 at 18-16, and they return home for the 2026 portion of their season calendar, which features 10 of the next 11 games at home, and they're not out of the state of California until January 22nd. So we're talking about by the time they get home, I would imagine at some point tomorrow, 3 weeks. 3 weeks in California. And only like 1 or 2 nights when you're in LA versus the Clippers, when you're not in your own bed in the Bay Area. So this is an opportunity for the Warriors to get fat, right? To get a little greedy, string some wins together, make this instead of a winners of 5 of 6, make this winners of something like, 10 of 12 if you can, and then see where you're at that point of the schedule. So you got the win. That's all that matters today. Was it perfect? Absolutely not. There's lots to talk about. There's also plenty good to talk about, and we're going to continue to do that here coming up in just a sec. But as promised, out to the phones we go at 888-957-9570. Mark Randy with you on Warriors Wrap-Up, an extended edition of Warriors Wrap-Up on this New Year's Eve. We're with you until 3 o'clock, so if you want to talk anything Warriors, just the game today, big picture Warriors, the trade deadline, what's went wrong for the Warriors so far this year, and there's a lot of it. We'll talk about New Year's resolutions for the Warriors. We'll do that as well coming up in the 2 o'clock hour. Anything on your mind Warriors related, give me a call, shoot me a text at 888-957-9570. Okay, Big Smooth is in Oakland and wants to weigh in. What's up, Big Smooth? You're on Warriors Wrap-Up.
What's going on, MG? So listen, man, bittersweet, right? We got the win. We're trying to stack up wins. But what concerns me is we have a turnover problem. But some of the turnovers are nonsensical. Some of the turnovers today, I have to focus on Draymond because I saw him make some, and I'm like, why did you even have to do that? And I'm noticing something else. When we turn the ball over, it seems like more than not they score. And I don't know if Steve is scared to address this. I don't know. But Draymond has already stood and said he's going to keep making these passes. That's the concern. That's the concern for me. He's already drew a line in the sand saying, I'm going to keep passing. Nobody has a problem with you passing, Draymond. It's why are you throwing the ball in between your legs? Skyhook pass. It doesn't make any sense. You don't have to make a 30-foot throw when you make a good defensive rebound. There has to be some kind of an agreement of what a bad pass is. We get an aggressive pass where you're trying to do something unexpected, but these passes are not unexpected. And there's something else that concerns me. Again, we got the win. I'm taking that. But we want to be a good team. We want to be a great team. But one of the things that concerns me is LaMelo Ball is most of their offense, yet he's getting easy threes, man. Our three-point – we got to run people off the line better. I don't know what's happening this year, but these young teams, like these young athletic teams, they're giving us problems, guys. And we have to change something. Something has to change. We used to be able to put teams away. We haven't been able to do that in a couple of years, especially this year. We should have put this team away, in my opinion, by at least 15. We're letting them linger, and I don't know why, man. Again, good win. That's great. That's wonderful. And we should literally have 6 in a row. But again, because of our bad habits, we don't have 6 in a row. We got 5 out of 6. But what's going to stop us going forward? Man, we got to make some changes. So that's what I'm hoping for. That's what I'm hoping the New Year's resolution is. Let's talk about these turnovers and see if we can we cut them in half? In other words, let's stop doing the dumb ones. And the ones that we're trying to, with a degree of difficulty, we're trying to make a great play, we can keep those. But some of these turnovers, man, I'm shaking my head like, why? That's all I'm saying, guys. Again, Happy New Year, great win. But it's an okay win, but let's keep stacking them up. We still got to stack them up.
I appreciate it. Yeah, appreciate it, Smooth. Happy New Year to you as well. I mean, yeah, I want to make sure, like, this was a win. They've won 5 of 6, and that's all great. And I want to make sure to highlight that. And there's plenty to go to talk about. I thought Podziemski was awesome. Besides, like, two bad decisions by Draymond, I thought he had an amazing game. It was one of his better games of the year, quite frankly, other than a couple of bad turnovers. Now, those 2 decisions does not completely erase all of the good stuff he did. He was far more positive than bad. Like, by a mile, he was one of the Warriors' best players. He was plus 18 in a game in which the Warriors won by 7. That means the Warriors were 11 points worse than the Hornets when Draymond did not play. Like, Draymond was great today. And if it's a one-off thing where you have a bad decision and a bad pass, like, that's one thing, and that's okay. Like, it happens. But I think, what Smooth is talking about there, he hits the nail on the head saying, like, this is becoming a bad habit. Not becoming, it is a bad habit. Some of the really bad turnovers. And, like, this frustration or the emphasis on turnovers, I think, comes from a good spot if you're a Warrior fan, because it comes from, the hope and expectation that this team is better than they've been through the first 34 games they've played now. And one of the most obvious ways they get to that better spot that a lot of Warrior fans have hope and expectation for, and by the way, I am one of those. I absolutely have one of those. I've had a couple people pull up some of my old tweets from the summer or before the season began, like in the fall, where I thought the Warriors were going to win, over 50 games. And I thought they were going to be fighting for maybe like the 4 seed in the Western Conference. And who knows, maybe they just absolutely, are great the second half of the season. That's possible. But I had high expectations for the team. I expected them to be a whole lot better than 18 and 16 at this point. The number one reason why they're not is because of the turnovers. I mean, you just look at some of the games that they've given away. And, like, okay, the stat that I gave you earlier, the Warriors have lost 16 games this year. In those 16 games, 11 of them came when they led in the fourth quarter. They had a lead in the fourth quarter, and they lost 11 times. I'm not talking about turning all 11 of those to wins. That is, not realistic. You can't win every close game. But if you just win, let's just say 3 more of those 11, 3 of those games, right? 3 of those games that you had a lead in the fourth quarter that you lost, and 3 of those become wins. Suddenly, you're sitting at 21 and 13. Doesn't that sound like 10 times better? 21 and 13 would put the Warriors a half game behind Minnesota. A half game behind Minnesota for the 6. And not that far out from a team, honestly, like Denver at the 3 seed. You'd be 2 games behind Denver for the 3. And I know this is a lot of ifs, ands, or buts. Like, and it is. Like, we're dealing in, not reality. We're dealing in a crazy hypothetical. But we're talking about just 3 games. I could run through the Warriors' schedule and find 6 games that they should have won. I'm talking about just 3 of them. So, like, it's not, I think, Big Smooth's frustration is fair. And I see this that came in on the YouTube chat, youtube.com/957thegame. Wes, I think this is directed towards Big Smooth. Wes wrote, it's 2025. The caller needs to, level set expectations that this ain't the 2015 Warriors. And that's totally fair, Wes. I do think that, higher expectations than the Warriors team has been so far is part of the reason why the frustration around the turnovers is so large. And just in general, if you are a fan of this team, you're going to be frustrated when, the same thing bothers them over and over and over again. But again, it's not like you're saying they need to be the number 1 seed along with OKC, and that's what we expect. No, it hasn't been that. It's just, 3 games here and there, and you're feeling 10 times better about where you are in the standings than where you currently are. So I think that is where the frustration is. And as Big Smooth pointed out, and I agree with, it isn't a one-off thing. It's becoming a habit. It's becoming part of the Warriors' DNA. And to a certain degree, it has always been a part of their DNA. Turnovers have, but not the turnovers to this extent, and not these kinds of turnovers where you have, 37, nearly 38-year-old Steph and, 35-year-old Draymond Green, who have seen everything there is to possibly see in the NBA, committing, honestly, just frankly, really bad turnovers that you wouldn't expect for guys of that age and who have been through what they've been through in the NBA. I also think this is kind of like one of the story, the big portions, the big plot points in the Warriors season so far. And when we do a little bit more season in review, we will do that. That's coming up. But let's go out to the phone lines because the phones are ringing off the hook right now. Sean is in Petaluma, and he wants to weigh in on this Warrior win and just the Warriors in general. What's up, Sean? You're on Warriors Wrap-Up with Mark Grandy. What do you got?
Hey, what's going on, Grandy? Hey, sorry about that championship. I came in second place, too, so I know how you feel. The Warriors, you never really know what's going to happen with them. It's all day to day, and I think we just have to wait and see. But I tell you one thing, they got to do something on the 15th with K-Dog, J.K. Am I right? All right, peace.
Oh, yeah, thanks, Sean. That was quick hang-up, too. He's talking about Jonathan Kuminga. January 15th is the day that he becomes trade eligible. I would just caution Warrior fans as circling the January 15th date as a day in which something happens. That's just when it can officially happen. The trade deadline, I believe it's February 5th. Let me confirm that for you. I would imagine something's going to happen closer to that day, and yes, it is. February 5th, noon Pacific is the trade deadline day and time in the NBA this year. February 5th, noon Eastern. That's a Thursday, if memory serves. So for the Warriors, you have from January 15th to February 5th, which is, almost 3 weeks of time to get something worked out. I don't necessarily think it's going to be something that happens like on February 5th, like minutes before the trade deadline. I don't think it's going to happen like 2 weeks from now on the 15th of January. That's when it can officially happen. Generally with these things, deadlines spur action. And if there's a team or two out there that are interested in Kuminga, the Warriors, the Warriors have a couple of interests. They, I think, want to get something out of that spot on their roster and out of, his money. And they want that ASAP because they could use it, hovering right now around 500 like they've been all season. They could use that. But also, the longer you wait, if you have a team on the hook that is interested, maybe the more willing they become to add something to the trade package before the actual deadline in fear of potentially losing him. So I think there's a couple of differing factors there. I would just say I don't expect something to happen right away. But, Sean, you're absolutely right that something has to happen. We're at the point of no return, in my opinion. Kuminga is getting DNPs over and over and over again. Steve Kerr, on one hand, says, we got to get him back into the lineup. He's deserved it. He's going to get back into the rotation, plays one game for 10 minutes, hasn't played since. At a certain point, you just got to believe the Warriors are not playing him because they don't want him to get injured. Part of it is also they don't think he fits well, and I think they're absolutely right to feel that way. But at a certain point, things weren't going great for your team either. You might have been able to just try something out. I think they're at a point where they are very convinced the trade is going to happen, and they don't want to have to trade damaged goods. So that's my thought. Something is going to happen. I would caution Warrior fans who think something's going to happen immediately on January 15th. I think it's going to happen a little bit later on than that. But again, the trade deadline is February 5th at noon Pacific. Back out to the phones, 888-957-9570. Mark is in Petaluma, wants to talk about the turnovers. That is the hot topic these days here around the Warriors. Mark, what's up? You're on a Warriors Wrap-Up. What do you got?
Hey, thanks very much. I think the Warriors' turnover problems are always going to be up or down because, and correct me if I'm wrong, but the style of their game is predicated. What do they call it? Read and react or something like that.
Yeah.
They're always They're always looking for a quick. I love it. I love the style actually. They're always looking for a quick pass. Or always. Going to be moving the ball. That's when they're at their best. That's what they want to do. So these are like split-second split-second decisions they're going to make. And sometimes you're going to make a bad split-second movement. They're always trying to, move the ball around, and where somebody's going to be at 1 second is not where he's going to be turning around to go in the other direction. That's their style. Now, tell me if I'm wrong, but even when they started this run, with Steph Curry in the beginning of their dynasty, it was the same style, and they always had a lot of turnovers back then because that's the way they plan to play the game. And, so you put that together with, more young players and aging players. It's just a recipe for inconsistency. So tell me I'm wrong. I keep wondering why people think it's unexpected that their turnovers are going to be higher than the norm around the league. They might be able to suppress the amount of turnovers if they really put their attention to it. But doesn't that put a crimp on their spontaneity? Doesn't that put a crimp on their, quickness and their, ability to make decisions quickly? Doesn't that slow them down if they do that? They play that way deliberately, and that would happen to any team. I don't care if you're talking about OKC. They probably have a lot of turnovers too because that's kind of the way they play. I don't know if you can look at statistics, but what do you think?
Yeah, Mark, I think it's a really good call, and I think you're kind of hitting on the key conversation here. Oddly enough, OKC is just like so off in their own stratosphere. They do. They don't play the same kind of offense as the Warriors do. They have Shea, and it's honestly a lot of ISO with Shea, and he's really good at it. It's why he was the MVP last year. OKC has the second fewest turnovers in the league. They take care of the ball like few other teams. Only Boston turns the ball over less than OKC does. The Warriors average the second most turnovers in the league. The only team that averages more turnovers than the Warriors is Portland. And you look at the teams around the Warriors. There's one major exception here, but the bottom 6 teams in the NBA in turnovers, the Wizards, the Nets, the Rockets, the Jazz, the Warriors, and the Blazers. Those are the bottom 6 in turnovers. What do all those teams have in common, or the majority of them? Bad teams. Wizards, Nets, Jazz, Blazers. I'm a fan of the Blazers personally. I think they are building something interesting. But at this stage, they're not a very good basketball team. Now, they've beaten the Warriors in all 3 times they've played so far this year. They are not, in my opinion, one of the top teams in the league. But again, the bottom 6, Wizards, Nets, Rockets, Jazz, Warriors, Blazers. The big exception there is the Rockets, who are one of the better teams in the Western Conference. And then if you want to include the Warriors as an exception, you can there as well. But otherwise, it's a lot of some of the worst teams in basketball. And the Warriors average 15.5 turnovers per game. The Warriors do. So what the caller was getting at, and I believe it was Mark, and I appreciate the call, Mark, the Warriors, to a certain degree, because of the offensive style they run, are always kind of on that knife's edge, or they're pushing the envelope just to the edge of a little too chaotic. And that's kind of how they've always been. And it's helped them win 4 championships. I don't think anyone could argue that it'd been the wrong style of offense to run. With Steph Curry and Draymond Green, when they are at their best, they thrive in those moments. The Steph Curry and Draymond connection is just the perfect encapsulation of the kind of chaotic nature the Warriors play. And when you play that way, as Mark put it, the read and react, which is, you make a decision with the ball in your hands in a split second. It is natural. It's instinctive. It is before you can even blink, you know what you're doing. You catch the ball, you're either shooting, you're putting the ball on the deck to drive, you're passing, and you know that decision immediately. When that happens, you're bound to make a bad decision here or there. But when you're reading and reacting that quick and it becomes second nature, it's so difficult for the defense to defend that because there's so many movements, so many things happening in such, rapid succession. And on top of that, you have the personnel, or at least in the past, you have had the personnel to make it work, led by Steph Curry and his gravity, which causes so many problems for a defense who was already so difficult to track the basketball and all the movement and all the split-second decisions being made. So the Warriors have, rightly so, used that as kind of their backbone for their offensive attack. But with that, again, because you're playing on that knife's edge of chaotic versus, controlled chaos, they're always on that edge, you are going to invariably turn the ball over. But again, not all turnovers are created equal, and there are turnovers where it's out of the aggression and it's out of trying to exploit one of those advantages you created that will invariably result in a turnover here or there. And the Warriors can live with those turnovers. The turnovers that I'm talking about, I think the turnovers that Big Smooth was talking about, the turnovers that I think so many Warrior fans are frustrated by, are not those turnovers. They're the turnovers that I was pointing out earlier, where Steph and Draymond get the ball after a defensive stop in the backcourt and throw, frankly, I'll be honest, a stupid pass halfway up the floor that gets intercepted without much of an effort from the opponent. Those are the things that just have to lose. They have to get that out of their game. They cannot do what they want to do this year with that stuff in their game. In my opinion, I don't see a way. They might have, frankly, been able to do that in years past when they had Steph and Clay and Draymond and KD. Like, they were good enough to overcome that. They're not good enough to overcome that kind of stuff every single night tonight. So, like tonight, 19 turnovers, that's too many. I think the Warriors' sweet spot should be at about 14 turnovers. If you're at 14 turnovers, you will absolutely accept that. And it's crazy. They average 15.5. That's like not a gigantic difference. If you average 14 turnovers per game, you're in the middle of the pack in the NBA. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 teams average below 14 turnovers per game. So you're right there in the middle at 14 turnovers per game. That's where the Warriors should aim for. Not to be the best team at taking care of the basketball, because they will never be that with this style of offense. But just be middle of the pack and avoid the really, really bad ones. That should be their goal. Now, on the flip side, and if you want to weigh in, give me a call or shoot me a text, 888-957-9570. We're with you for another hour until 3 o'clock for an extended edition of Warriors Wrap-Up today here on 95.7 The Game. Happy New Year's Eve to everybody out there. Hopefully, if you're heading out to a celebration, do so safely. I know it's wet out there. Some could argue that the style of offense the Warriors run, which has been tried and true for over a decade now, maybe the style of offense that they run no longer fits their personnel. And I'd be open to hearing an argument about that. And the person making that argument would say, well, if they're not going to fix the turnover issue themselves, then maybe, Steve Kerr needs to force the turnover issue themselves to be fixed. And one of the forces is to playing maybe a less chaotic brand of basketball. Maybe that's the solution. And I'd hear that argument again. I think as long as Steph is still the driving force behind this thing, you have to do what you think is best to give Steph space and to get him good looks. And I still think that is the chaotic nature. The ball is moving. Steph is running off of down screens and tiring out his defender, and they're utilizing his gravity and all of that. So Steph hasn't lost a step, or at least not much of a step. But, maybe you say if Draymond has lost it, and the connection between Steph and Draymond have kind of been the driving force behind this offense for the last decade plus, then maybe it is time for an adjustment. I think this is where Jimmy Butler comes in. And it's really interesting the way the Warriors have kind of talked about this of late, because if you've noticed, what they do when they say, we have to limit turnovers, we got to be smarter with the basketball, they just say, when in doubt, give the ball to Jimmy. Give the ball to Jimmy. And he'll take care of it, and he'll figure things out. And that is, again, an interesting development, because I think it is a little bit of a variation from what the Warriors have done for years now under Steve Kerr, which is just run the offense. Run the offense, run the offense, run the offense. And of course, when Steph is on versus Steph is off, it's always going to be different. But I've asked Steve Kerr about this. Like, how difficult is it when Steph is on the floor to run one style of offense, and when Steph is off to run an entirely different style of offense? And he said it's difficult. It's not easy to do. You can't just flip a switch like that, because you're kind of in the moment, in a rhythm. It's hard to do that. I think they have kind of made a little bit of an effort to do that a little bit. And maybe at a certain point, if these issues continue, one, maybe there's a conversation about, Draymond's future. I tend to feel like it is not much of a convo because as long as Steph Curry still likes and wants Draymond Green as a teammate, which I happen to believe he absolutely does, then it's the end of that conversation. But if the turnovers continue to dismantle Warrior wins, then you'd be crazy to not at least think about some kind of change. So we'll see how that does go, but I do think we have seen a slight adjustment from Steve Kerr in terms of when turnovers are really preventing them from winning a basketball game. The antidote is, all right, less crazy ball movement, less read and react, less chaos, because I don't trust us to not commit turnovers amid that chaos, and more, all right, Jimmy, we're going to throw it to you in the post. Do what you do, whether either it's getting to the free throw line, drawing a foul and getting to the free throw line, whether it's pump faking and getting an easy layup, whether it is, driving, spinning baseline, getting under the hoop, drawing the defense, kicking to post for a three, like whatever it is, do what you do. We know it's not going to result in turnovers that often, and we're going to get a high percentage look. There has been more of that. It's been, we need Jimmy to be more aggressive, right? That's been the conversation. In the last two games, the field goal attempts haven't been there, but he's gotten to the line double-digit times in each of the last two games. And that, to me, is also a major signal of Jimmy's aggressiveness. So it's interesting the way it plays out. But there's no doubt that turnovers are an issue. You ask Steve Kerr at any point this season, what's your biggest concern? He will say turnovers. So at a certain point, you can't, right? It's Sisyphus rolling the rock up the side of a hill. You can't just do the same thing over and over and over and expect different results. I don't think the Warriors are at that point yet. There has been some slight adjustments, but at a certain point, you get pretty concerned because nothing is changing on the turnover front. But they also got the win today, 132 to 125. Let's go back out to the phone lines, 888-957-9570. Really quick, though, before I do that, Jeff, you're coming up in just a sec. I did want to remind everybody that you're listening to 95.7 The Game, KGMZ FM in HD1 San Francisco, an Odyssey sports station, and the home of the Golden State Warriors and Valkyries. Always live on the free Odyssey app, coming to you live from the Laughing Monk Studios. Jeff is in the city and is up next. What's up, Jeff? You're on Warriors Wrap-Up. Jeff?
Yes.
You there?
Yes, I'm here.
What do you got?
I think you guys are right because the Warriors don't need to have all these turnovers. If they had Kevin Durant, if they had Klay Thompson, and everybody was in line and doing what they're supposed to be doing, we'd win more games and win more championships because without the star players that they got rid of, especially letting Kuminga go, he's one of our great players. Without that, we wouldn't. If we had those players, we wouldn't have these turnovers. We'd be shooting more free throws, making more three-point shots.
Wait, so Jeff, do you think that Kuminga is the solution to the Warriors' turnover problems? Is that what you said?
Yes, I think so. I think if we keep him, he'd help the team better.
All right, Jeff.
Because who would we trade him? Who would we trade him for?
Yeah, Jeff, appreciate the call. That is like question number one as it relates to roster manipulation for the Warriors is who does Kuminga get you back? I'll just tell you, Jeff, I don't think Kuminga is the solution to anything on the Warriors right now. And there's many reasons for that. It's not all Kuminga's fault. The Warriors, I think the relationship is just at a standstill, and I think we're at a point of no return, and I think both parties know a divorce is coming. It's just a matter of when the divorce comes, whether it is very quickly after he's trade eligible on January 15th or closer to the deadline on February 5th. Sometime between those two dates, a trade will happen. I would be willing to bet a lot of money on that, but we'll see how it all plays out. I don't think he's the solution to the Warriors' turnover problems. Can he do some things to help the Warriors? Yes, absolutely. Absolutely he can. Can he do what Guy Santos did today? Is a question I think that's worth asking. And Steve Kerr was asked about this somewhat recently. In fact, I have it here for you. Steve Kerr, this was after the Brooklyn game a couple of days ago when Steve was asked after another Kuminga DNP Steve was asked, is there a pathway for Kuminga to get minutes again? And here's what Steve Kerr said.
It's tough because he's not really a short minute player. You know, I played a bunch of guys 8-10 minutes. JK's a guy who needs rhythm. He's not like a Guy who's going to come in, or Pat, and just fly around and, you know, play with great energy for 4 minutes and come out. He needs some rhythm. So he always has to stay ready, and there's a pathway there. But you know, right now it's not there. But things change quickly in the NBA.
So, you know, essentially, I heard him say, no, not really, not right now. Now, maybe things change, and things can always change in the league, as he said, and things can change very quickly. But right now, there's not much of a pathway for Kuminga. And he cited the kind of player that Kuminga is, which is, in general, he kind of has to, and this isn't like a major knock. There's a lot of players across the league that are this way, that kind of like have to feel the game, and they get into a rhythm after a certain amount of minutes, and then, you know, the return that you're getting from them is kind of heightened the longer that they play. That has always kind of been Kuminga's nature as a basketball player. And if you look at the numbers on it, you see it broken down that way. And some of it is, well, is he playing more minutes because he's playing well, or is he playing well because he's playing more minutes? Is it chicken or the egg? But when he plays like 10 or fewer minutes in games, of course, the counting stats, number of points, number of rebounds, number of assists, those are way down because, of course, the less you play, the fewer chances you have to score and to get those counting stats up. But the percentages are pretty drastic, too. When he plays 10 or fewer minutes, he struggles to shoot the basketball. When he plays 20 to 10 minutes, he's shooting the ball a whole lot better, and it continues to go up and up and up. The longer he plays, in general, the better, more effective he is. But right now, at least in the mind of the decision makers for the Warriors, which is all that matters in this conversation, even if you disagree, that's what matters in terms of the reality of his playing time. They don't have room for him to play 25, 30 minutes a night. So the reality for Kuminga is, if you're going to play, you're going to play like 10 minutes a night. You're going to get the Guy Santos role. Can you be effective in those 10 minutes? And the answer is no, he cannot. Not as effective as Guy Santos. And Guy Santos was awesome today. Guy was amazing today. Guy today finished with 13 points. He was a plus 15 in 17 minutes. That plus 15, by the way, second best on the Warriors, and he only did it in 17 minutes. He was 5 of 6 from the field, 3 of 4 from downtown. And Guy had an amazing sequence to close the second quarter. This was like back-to-back possessions. Con Knippel, one of my favorite rookies in the league, from Duke, who's a freshman along with Cooper Flagg, who went, I believe, 4th overall to Charlotte. He's breaking all kinds of shooting records for rookies. Fastest player to make 100 threes in the NBA, in NBA history. Steph is like not even top 5 or 10 on that list because so many players shoot so many more threes now because of the change that he ushered into the game. But Con Knippel holds that record. It was Guy Santos racing over from the weak side and blocking a Con Knippel jumper towards the end of a shot clock. And then the ensuing possession resulted in Steph missing a 3. Guy, who had no right to get this rebound, just out-hustled everybody for the offensive rebound, saved it from going out of bounds, I believe to Will Richard, who then passed it right back to Guy Santos, left wing, who hit a 3. So Guy had a block, hustle play, offensive rebound, hustle play, and then as a result of that hustle, got a 3 to go. One of the best sequences of his career. And those are the sorts of things that when you play those little 5-minute bursts twice a game, you play 10 minutes over the course of a game, those are the things that you have to do. And those are the things that Guy Santos has done way more often than Kuminga has done. Does not mean that Guy is necessarily a better player if you give them both 30 minutes, but over those short stretches of play, Guy has proven to be way more effective, and that is one of the reasons. It's probably the biggest reason why. So that is the long answer about why Kuminga is not playing right now. And the easier, shorter answer is also, well, they, I think, feel very strongly that he's going to be traded, and they don't want to have to trade damaged goods. They don't want to have to deal with having an injured player when they're trying to trade him, and they're just going to try to keep him healthy. That's my read on the situation as well. Yeah. There's more to talk about with all of that, and we'll get into that coming up in a bit, as well as we kind of head towards the zoom out perspective, look at this Warriors season so far. We'll do New Year's resolutions coming up in just a sec. But let's go back out to the phone lines now as well. 888-957-9570 because Eric in Millbrae wants to weigh in. What's up, Eric? You're on Warriors Wrap-Up on 95.7 The Game. What do you got?
Hey, what's going on? About the game tonight, the workmanlike win, not too pretty, but they'll take it. As you mentioned, the costly turnovers just costing them. The Warriors got to clean that up. It's just terrible right now, the way they just given the ball up and probably cost them, about 3-4 games at least, self-inflicted errors. So they really got to clean that up. Game ball to Podziemski. I know he takes a lot of heat and criticism, but hey, the guy balled out. He's critical. They probably don't win tonight. And you mentioned the other guy I was going to talk about, Santos. You love the energy minutes, love the hustle and heart that guy plays with, and that's what they're going to need with that second unit guys like him. Since Kuminga's basically out of the rotation, he's got to give him that type of big minutes there going forward when he's producing. And I love to see that out of a guy like him. Hopefully TJD. I know he only played a couple minutes tonight. He's got to really get it going in Hartford. I know they're going to play him in spots, but he's got to be that go-to guy when he comes into the game and when he's not starting. Just looking forward here now. The Warriors got no excuses now. You got a stretch here where you're going to have about 10 home games. To me, bare minimum, I'm looking at 8-2, nothing worse than 7-3. Ideally, 8-2 should be ideal for them. Obviously, you're going to be playing the tough defending champs on Friday night game. I'm going to be at. That's going to be a tough game, and I think they play the Knicks. That's going to be a tough game. But I'm looking overall stretch. There's nothing that should prevent them from going 8-2. I don't want to hear Kerr making excuses about scheduling or minutes or guys tired. You had a tough stretch to start the season. Now you're getting the really front end of the homestand here, and they really got to get going because if they can't take advantage of this stretch of games here, I think they're going to be back into the usual of trying to fight out of that play-in spot again. So they really got to take advantage here, and especially with the Jokic going down here, I think Denver's going to really struggle. The Lakers are struggling, so some teams are going to be falling back to the pack. So this is an advantage point for the Warriors to really get going in. And finally, the New Year's resolution for the Warriors, stop choking away fourth-quarter leads. They've been embarrassing giving away these games in the fourth quarter. There's no reason with a veteran-laden team that's won 4 titles to be this pathetic and horrendous, struggling to beat teams in the fourth quarter. It's the one thing if you're Charlotte or the Wizards or one of these god-awful teams, but you're the Warriors. You won 4 titles. You got established Hall of Fame players, and for them to perform as poorly in the fourth quarter as they have, costing them, I don't know, probably about 5-6 games throughout this stretch here, inexcusable. So that relies on Kerr and the leaders of the team, and Curry, Draymond, and Jimmy Buckets here to really get these guys focused and locked in, because if that continues, man, you're going to be right back in the play-in stretch, and you're going to be playing one of the big boys in the first round and probably be one and done. So that's got to be their mindset. This is no reason why this team should be struggling in the fourth quarters because they can't close out these games. So I just want to get your overall stretch and your takes on this homestand here, and what do you see next for the time, man?
Yeah, appreciate the call, Eric. You're absolutely right that this stretch coming up is like go time for the Warriors. 10 of 11 at home. You don't leave the state of California for 3 weeks once you get back from Charlotte after the game today. And it's not only home games and, staying in California. It is also, a handful of definitely beatable opponents. You got OKC Friday, then Utah, then the Clippers on the road, Milwaukee, Sacramento, Atlanta, Portland, the Knicks, Charlotte again, Miami, and Toronto. Those are your next 11 games. OKC is going to be really tough. Milwaukee with Giannis back, not going to be easy. Clippers are playing better of late. The Knicks are a quality basketball team, but you feel like you should be able to beat, at home, Utah. You should be able to beat Sacramento. Atlanta's got some interesting pieces. They're in a conundrum with Trae Young, but you could beat them at home, definitely. You should be able to beat Portland, although you're 0-3 versus them so far. The Knicks will be a challenge, but it's certainly winnable. You should beat Charlotte. You should beat Miami. You could easily beat Toronto at home. There's a lot of wins there lining up if you are the Warriors, and that is absolutely the time to get fat. The Warriors have played, let me make sure I get the number exactly right. With today's win, the Warriors have played, 34 basketball games. Yeah, they're 18-16, 34 games. 20 of them have been on the road. They've played 20 games on the road and 14 games at home. You know how many road games you have for an entire season? So the Warriors play 82 games. You play 41 games on the road. You've already played basically half of your road games, and you're not yet halfway done with the season. You've played 34 games. You have 7 more games before you get to the halfway point, and you're basically already fully halfway done with your road game slate. So the second half of this season, if we use like today as the cutoff point, essentially, it's far more games at home than on the road. And the Warriors at home are 10-4. On the road, they're 8-12. So that is just where the game is being played is a big deal. Also, who you're playing against is a big deal. But where the game is played is a gigantic deal for the Warriors. 10-4 at home and 8-12 on the road. So we'll see how it plays out. But this is the opportunity for the Warriors to get going. And I just saw this text come in, and it made me chuckle from the 415 on the Boxer and Gerson Work Injury Attorneys text line. LOL. Counting wins for this Warriors roster is something. And yeah, you're right, 415. I mean, I'll do the same thing, but in reverse, and look at the Warriors games that have already been played. And we'll kind of point out games that they lost that they very easily could have won. Milwaukee, without Giannis, they lost that game. Indiana, without anybody playing for Indiana, they lost that game. The game in Sacramento was weird because you rested everybody, but so did they. It was winnable. You lost that one by 5. That one doesn't jump out to me as crazy. In Orlando, that was a game where Steph was amazing, and you lose that one. Orlando was down Paolo Banchero. You lost to Houston at home when they were without Kevin Durant. You lost a winnable game in Philly to the Sixers when you could not inbound the ball late. I don't care that Steph, Jimmy, Draymond were out. That was a winnable game. A turnover down the stretch cost you that one. You blew a game in Phoenix, 99-98. You blew one against Minnesota at home. You blew one in Portland where Steph made 12 threes and scored 48 points. Like, there's so many of them. So 415, you're absolutely right. Like, saying that's a win is asking to get hurt for this Warrior team because they've already had a number of games where you say, oh, that should be a win, and then they find a way to lose. The hope is, though, that they've won 5 of 6. They're feeling better about themselves. They know they got a home stretch coming up. They can kind of relax, lean into that rhythm and see where it takes them. But you're right. Nothing is for sure with this Warrior team. There's no doubt. Let's go to Tom in Berkeley who wants to weigh in next at 888-957-9570. What's up, Tom? You're on Warriors Wrap-Up here on 95.7 The Game.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I got you. What do you got?
Well, I'm optimistic the way you are. I think that, the young players are playing really well. We've got a really good 3-center combo. And I think Steve has realized we need to have more length in the games, especially near the end, okay? We got 3 really good centers. The young players are playing well. The turnover issue is basically an issue, I think, between, the veterans. I mean, some of these ridiculous half-court turnovers, long passes are absurd, and I think they'll clean that up. I really do. That's their responsibility. It's Draymond and Steph. The turnovers inside when they're moving, and, that's okay. We can deal with that. But you're right. If we can average 14 turnovers for the rest of the year, we'll be fine. So I'm very optimistic. I'm really pleased with the way that Pods has been playing. He's been playing great. He really has. So, anyway, I'm optimistic. You're right. We got a good run coming up, and let's see what happens.
Yeah, Tom, appreciate the call. And I'm glad that you shouted out Brandon Podziemski as well. Podziemski has a strange relationship with this fan base. He does something wrong and feels like he gets I don't know. He gets hate, feels like disproportionate to a lot of the other players on this Warrior team from so many of the fans, and maybe I'm living in a social media bubble, and that's certainly possible. Podziemski has been really good of late. And I mean really good of late. 6 of 9, 5 of 7 from deep. In the month of December, he's averaging 12 points, 4 rebounds, 4 assists, shooting 50% from the field, 40% from downtown, and 79% from the free throw line. He's shooting 50% from the field and 40% from deep over a month. Over the entire season, he's shooting 45 from the field and 46 from the field and 39, almost 40% from deep. But recently, he's been a whole lot better. 19 points today, had an 18-point game against Phoenix, 21 points in Chicago, 16 versus Orlando, 13 and 13 versus Dallas and in Toronto. He's been a lot better of late. And frankly, when you ask, like, of the Warriors' young players, right, like put Steph, put Draymond, put Jimmy, put Al, put all the others off to the side, of the Warriors' young players, Podziemski, Moody, Post, Kuminga, although Kuminga not really in this convo because he doesn't play right now because not through any like real fault of his own. He's just not playing because the Warriors don't think he fits and they're probably about to trade him. But of the Warriors' young players, who has been the most consistent scorer? It's not even close. It's Podziemski. It is absolutely not even close. It's Podziemski. And I think part of the awkward relationship with the Warriors fan base has with him is because of some of the comments he's made about how he wants to be, the heir apparent to Steph and Draymond, and when they retire, he wants to be the one that they feel comfortable handing the franchise off to, which is a fine and noble goal. It's a little weird, though, when you talk about it openly. He's talked about how if he wasn't a pro basketball player, he'd be a pro baseball player and could be like he was quoted as saying the white Ohtani, where he could both pitch and hit. Like those kind of comments, I think, kind of rub the Warrior fans the wrong way. But honestly, just go and watch the last handful of Warriors basketball games. Frankly, watch the majority of the season. Look at the numbers. Who is the Warriors youngster that is like closest to being that, third or fourth scorer? It is clearly Podziemski. Moody has an explosive night like in New Orleans where he made 8 threes or whatever that was, 10 threes or 8 of them in the first quarter, whatever the case was. He has those moments. Quentin Post has taken a major leap defensively. His shot hasn't been consistent this year, his shot from outside at least. Podziemski has he been, I think, has he made as much of a leap as he was probably hoping this year? Probably not. But he is clearly, of the Warriors youngsters, the guy that has shown the most consistency scoring the basketball this year. And I don't think it's all that close. 888-957-9570 if you want to weigh in. Brett is in Concord and wants to focus on the fourth quarter tonight, and I like that, Brett. Let's get back to what happened in this game. Brett, you're on Warriors wrap-up by 95.7 the game. What do you got?
Happy New Year's, buddy, by the way.
You too.
So it's hard to get down on the bench because I thought they played so well on this whole road trip. And a couple callers back, they said, we got a savvy veterans and we can't blow fourth quarters. Well, that was a totally different team. You had David West, you had Sean Livingston, you had Andre Iguodala. You got a bunch of young guys, starting the fourth quarter for the most part. I mean, I honestly think that this team, the sky's the limit. I mean, you flip a coin and these games could have gone either way. And that's the truth. And they could easily be 22 and 10 or 22 and 12 right now instead of 18 and 16. I think their best is still yet to be played, and I think they'll still end up being a 4 seed or higher than a 4 seed. Thanks for taking my call.
Wow, Brett, that is. I love your confidence. Higher 4 seed or higher. I mean, that would be a dream for the Warriors. That's they're gonna have to play really, really amazing basketball for the rest of the season. Getting to the 6 is still absolutely within reach. You climb all the way up to the 4 or higher. You're going to need you to play great basketball, and you're going to need others to struggle. So I'm not setting sights that high. 6 seed or the 5. Right now, those two teams are tied right now. The Lakers and the T-Wolves. Lakers have them by percentage points, but they're both 9 games over 500. Lakers 20-11, T-Wolves 21-12. They're both 2.5 games ahead of the Warriors. That is absolutely doable to get to the 5 or the 6. Above that, it of course, the more teams you have to jump, the more difficult it gets. But there's still a ton of basketball left. You've played 34 games, which means you have still a gigantic chunk left. More than half the season is left. But we'll see how it all plays out. I do think the Warriors' best basketball is yet to come. Now, that has some to do with the fact that they haven't played all that great yet. So it's not as if I hold them to a standard of, winning 55-plus games. And if that was the case, you would expect them to be a whole lot better. I do expect them to be better the rest of the way, but partially because they haven't been all that good yet. And it's going to be hard to be, at least you would hope, you knock on wood, it's going to be hard for them to be worse the rest of the way. 888-957-9570 if you want to weigh in to this conversation. We're going to hit a break here in a couple of minutes. Then we've got 30 minutes left with you until 3 o'clock when we'll wrap things up. I do want to get into some big picture stuff for the Warriors. Some New Year's type things. What about some New Year's resolutions for the Warriors this year? Give that a second to think about. You can shoot me a text. Give me a call, 888-957-9570 for New Year's resolutions for the Warriors. You can also, of course, join in on the YouTube chat, youtube.com/957thegame, for some New Year's resolutions. For example, I have like 3 things I want to add to Steve Kerr's New Year's resolutions list. We can do that. Think about some things that you want the Warriors to aim for and to make like a change in 2026. We can also talk about what has gone wrong for the Warriors so far this year. What has maybe surprised you? What has led to their subpar beginning? And right, like 18 and 16, they still have everything in front of them, but it has not been nearly as good as I think most people expected. What has led to that? What has been their issues that maybe you did not see cropping up? I have one that, looking back on it now, is like, I don't know how I could have possibly overlooked this. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about, again, the New Year's resolutions and a whole lot more. As we come back, it's Warriors Wrap-Up on 95.7 The Game, an extended edition here on this Wednesday, on New Year's Eve. We got Warriors basketball today at 10 a.m. this morning in Charlotte, so we've got an extended edition of Warriors Wrap-Up before we gonna get on out of here for the holiday night and the holiday tomorrow. But one more segment left with you. It's about 2:30. We're with you until 3. Again, New Year's resolutions for the Warriors. What do you think? 888-957-9570. As we continue after this, it's Warriors Wrap-Up after the Dubs knock off the Hornets 132-125. More Warriors Wrap-Up with Mark Randy next on 95.7 The Game.
The chase starts here. To make moments you'll never forget.
Chase Center is rocking.
The moment needs you on Warriors Ground. Chase the moment. Buy tickets at Warriors.com.
The Floor Store is your Bay Area flooring authority. Selection, expertise, price, guaranteed installation. Visit floorstores.com.
If you're drowning in IRS debt and can't afford to pay, then you need to take advantage of special IRS tax programs that are available and free yourself from IRS collection efforts once and for all. Due to the financial hardship consumers are facing throughout the country, the Internal Revenue Service has made it easier to settle delinquent tax problems. An open phone line has been established by Community Tax for consumers to call and see if they qualify. Take down this number or store it in your cell phone, but call the Community Tax Helpline at 800-269-3454. If you owe back taxes to the IRS and cannot afford to pay them back, or even if you have years of unfiled tax returns, there's no need to fear anymore. But you have to call the Community Tax Helpline today at 800-269-3454 for the help that you need. Don't take on the IRS alone. They can attack your wages, savings, pension, home, and even your Social Security check. Call 800-269-3454 for your free consultation and to see if you qualify. That's 800-269-3454.
Xfinity is the network you can rely on. Like a close friend who will give it to you straight. The friend who will tell you that new haircut, it's not great. Friends make sure friends get good haircuts. And Xfinity makes sure you get a good deal on Wi-Fi. Xfinity gives you reliable fiber-powered Wi-Fi at our best price. This holiday season through January 4th, get gig speed Wi-Fi for just $50 a month for 5 whole years. No strings, no commitments. Just super fast, reliable gig speed Wi-Fi with our best equipment and unlimited data included. Save yourself from questionable decisions and save over Verizon and AT&T. Xfinity. Imagine that. Restrictions apply. Requires paperless billing and auto pay with stored bank account. Taxes and fees extra. Xfinity Internet powered by fiber and connected to premises by coaxial cable. Actual speeds vary.
Want to interact with the hosts but can't call? Text the Boxer and Gerson Work Injury Attorneys text line at 888-957-9570. Boxer and Gerson, Northern California's premier workers' compensation law firm, helping injured workers get their lives back for over 40 years.
Wesley Financial Group is not a law firm.
I'm Chuck McDowell, founder of Wesley Financial Group. Did you buy a timeshare because they told you it was a great investment? That's a lie. Most timeshares can be bought online for $1. To find out what your timeshare is worth and to cancel it, Call us today and we'll send you our timeshare exit kit free with all your options for cancellation.
Call Wesley for your free exit info guide. 800-939-1441. That's 800-939-1441.
In Oakland today, clouds, afternoon showers, and a high of 53.
Weather brought to you by Robert Half. Our recruiters' expertise and award-winning AI will find you the skilled candidates you want. At Robert Half, we know talent. Visit roberthalf.com/talent today.
Wesley Financial Group is not a law firm.
Ask yourself this question. Is it really worth holding on to that timeshare that you know you need to get rid of? Here's the truth. The average maintenance fee just went up over 17%. That could have been 117%, and there's nothing you can do about it. When you buy a timeshare, you give them a blank check for annual maintenance and assessment fees. I'm Chuck McDowell, founder of Wesley Financial Group. For 15 years, I've helped over 50,000 families cancel their timeshare. Not sell it, not transfer it, cancel it. Did you buy a timeshare because they told you it was a great investment and your maintenance fees would never go up? That's a lie. Are you ready to get rid of your timeshare once and for all? Simply call us and I'll send you our timeshare exit kit that explains all your options for cancellation.
Call Wesley now for your timeshare exit kit. 800-823-5544. That's 800-823-5544. 800-823-5544.
Spreadsheets, clunky software, 100 different logins just to run your business? Ah.
There's a better way. Odoo. One simple, connected platform that handles sales, inventory, accounting, and more, so you can focus on growing, not juggling. Make the switch today at odoo.com. That's ODOO.com.
Welcome back to Winter Hack Radio, the place for clever hacks to survive the season. Icy driveway? Well, try spreading sand or birdseed to help with traction. Snowy puppy paws? Well, grab a whisk, brush it off, done. Catch COVID-19? Well, just get...
Actually, there's no hack for COVID-19. But if you test positive, prescription medications for COVID exist. Ask your doctor if they're right for you. Visit PfizerForAll.com to learn more. Sponsored by Pfizer.
Red and Gold Game Day starts at Laughing Monk Brewing. Park for free. Enjoy amazing food, ice-cold beer, and every game on TV. Catch 95.7 The Game's pregame show. Then hop on the free shuttle straight to the stadium. Sign up now at 957thegame.com.
Melton to Draymond Green. Dribbles and sets a screen for Curry. Steps around Diabate. Dribbles to the paint. Weaves it up top to Richard. He'll drive in. Kicks it out to Draymond. His three attempt is good! Draymond Green. Clutch with 2 minutes to go. Warriors up 8. 126-118. Knipple drives and was fouled before by Richard as he tried to wheel to get downhill. Boy, all of a sudden the intensity of this game just went up a big notch.
Now back to Warriors Wrap Up on 95.7 The Game.
You know what Draymond says after he makes a three, right? Boom! And that's what Draymond was doing right there. A clutch three for Draymond Green. It came in a really big moment because Will Richard hit a three, put the Warriors up 8, 2.5 left. Then the rookie Con Knipple from Duke hit a three right back. You just felt like maybe the game was over, but they get a three. Back down by 5 were the Hornets. Draymond responds with a made three. Warriors go back up by 8, 2 minutes left. It wasn't officially over yet at that point. Of course, you got to play defense, get a couple more stops, but that three was, one of the final nails in the coffin for the Hornets. Draymond, we talked a lot about turnovers. He had a couple of rough ones today, finished with 4 in total, but other than that, Draymond was one of the Warriors, maybe even their best player tonight. 10 points, 4 for 6 from the field, 2 for 4 from deep, 8 rebounds, 12 assists. The number of times he set up different Warriors with just easy layups with pinpoint passes, it kind of felt like classic Draymond. Like that, he had a couple of bad decisions, a couple of bad turnovers, and I spent a lot of time talking about it. And the Warriors' turnover issue, it's going to begin with Steph and Draymond figuring it out themselves, and it's going to, I think, lead to the rest of the team figuring it out. It's going to begin with those two. But other than a couple of bad decisions, I thought Draymond was really, really good today. And I'm glad that Cam came back with that Draymond highlight because that was one of the bigger shots of the game. Hey, the Golden State Warriors are back. Cheer on your Warriors with an ice-cold Surfside, only 100 calories, 2 grams of sugar, and 0 bubbles, so it's easy to sip and enjoy. It's not a seltzer, it's Surfside, proud partner of the Golden State Warriors, must be 21. Please drink responsibly. We're going to get to our Warriors New Year's resolutions in just a sec. We do have a call to go to. I'm going to do that right now. 888-957-9570. Mitch is in New Jersey and wants to weigh in about these Warriors. What's up, Mitch? Happy New Year.
Happy New Year and Happy New Year to you and your family, everybody out there. Thanks for taking the call, Granny. I wish they get another forward or center. I'm not a fan of Draymond, and could possibly Anthony Melton get a starting job or get more minutes. I like his game, always have. He just gets hurt too much. What do you think? And go Big Ten except for Ohio State, I say.
Yes, absolutely, Mitch. You're speaking my language. I don't know if you're in the YouTube chat, Mitch, but it's kind of what we were just going back and forth with during the break. If you want to join the YouTube chat, I generally try to get in there during the commercial breaks, and we were just talking about the college football playoff games coming up, and the general consensus that I saw on the YouTube chat was Big Ten other than Ohio State, which means go Indiana and go Oregon, and I can get on board with that. Of course, I am a proud Duck, and that game's coming up tomorrow morning, 9 a.m., Oregon and Texas Tech in Miami. But I move on. Mitch talked about D'Anthony Melton. I agree with Mitch. I talked about this the second that D'Anthony Melton was signed. I think Melton is going to find himself in the closing lineups more often than not. And we might get to a point where he starts. Right now, his minutes limit was 20 for the first number of games he played. It just got upped to 24. Steve Kerr said that after their game, not today, but after the game in Brooklyn a couple of days ago. His minutes restriction is now 24 minutes per game, or thereabouts. 23, 25, somewhere around there is kind of the max they want Melton to play every single game. He's still not going to play back-to-backs yet. But once he gets upwards where he can play 26, 28 minutes a night without an issue, I think we'll see Melton close a lot. Now, one thing about D'Anthony Melton is he hasn't really gotten his shot figured out. He made a big three in the second half today, which was great to see. And if you were watching on the NBC Sports Bay Area broadcast with Bob Fitzgerald and Kalena Azubuike, you heard them talk about how good that made three must have felt for Melton. And the reason is because this year Melton is shooting 15% from deep and 32% from the field. So it has not clicked offensively yet for D'Anthony Melton. Now, he still does a lot of those other things the Warriors need. And we talked about ball handlers, and this is where we're going to get to in terms of New Year's resolutions and where things have gone wrong. One of the things that Melton does is he does provide somebody that can just handle the ball and can dribble against pressure and can take some of that responsibility off of Steph. It's why Melton being available in Toronto probably means the Warriors win that game. I thought Steve Kerr misevaluated that Toronto game and what was needed. He didn't play Pat Spencer. I think Pat Spencer is one of the few guys on the Warriors roster that can dribble against some pressure. The Warriors had GP2. They had Will Richard. They had others bringing the ball up against double teams and traps in the half court, or in the front court, against the Raptors. And that length with a double team against someone like a GP2 or Will Richard, you're asking for trouble. If it's Melton, it's easier to handle that. If it's Pat Spencer, it's easy to handle that. So Melton does some of that as well, and I'm with Mitch. Starting lineup is one thing. Who knows? I think if he gets up to a point where he can play 28 minutes, then yeah, why not? But definitely closing lineups, I think more often than not, you will see Melton there. That gets me, though, to I think maybe one of the biggest things that has gone wrong for the Warriors this year, or maybe the better way to phrase it is, where was I wrong in my evaluation of this team? Because I thought this was a team, and maybe they could still prove me right. 18-16, 34 games in is not off to a great start. I thought this team was going to win 50-plus games, and again, they still can. But I thought they were going to win 50-plus games. I thought basically all year they were going to be in contention for a top 4 seed in the West. Not 1, not 2, probably not 3, but 4, I think, was clearly in their grasp. I thought it was something that they were capable of doing, and they still could, of course. Not off to a very good start, and you're 34 games in, you're almost halfway done. I think one of the things that I overlooked was their lack of ball handling. And that Toronto game is the perfect example of it. They just have not been able to find enough ball handlers for guys that can take pressure off of Steph. And Steph played 41 minutes in Toronto. And I was, calling out a specific play where I thought Steph made a mistake. And it was towards the end of the third quarter when the Warriors allowed the Raptors to go on an 8-0 run. It took that 12-point Warrior lead down to a 4-point Warrior lead, led into the fourth, where the Warriors actually kind of responded and got the lead back up to 12. And then they did it all again with the turnovers. But there was that stretch where they committed, I believe it was 3 straight turnovers that led to buckets for Toronto in the final minute of the third quarter, which led to that 8-0 run and the momentum shifting back to Toronto. One of those moments was Will Richard, a rookie, bringing the ball up the court himself after a Toronto-made bucket against a trap and a double team in the half court, while everyone else on the floor, which included Steph, just kind of jogged up the court. And no one made themselves available to Will Richard, or no one thought it was not a good idea to have Will Richard have the ball in his hands in that spot in the first place. Like, just give it to Steph, right? Let Steph do it. Part of this is, and that's why I criticize Steph in that moment, but part of it also is Steph played 41 minutes that game. I know at that point, not up to 41, not even close to 41 at that point, having a whole third quarter or a whole fourth quarter and overtime to go. But part of it is that's tiring work. And Steph is 37, pushing 38 in March. And you're asking him, he's going to take the ball up every single time versus pressure? Like, that's not an easy thing to do. So the Warriors, they just desperately need more ball handlers. And that's, I think, where I was maybe wrong in my evaluation more than anything else about this Warrior team, is they just don't have enough trusted ball handlers. Like, if I were to ask you, how many guys do you trust against some defensive pressure, more than just like one-on-one getting up in you, but maybe a couple of guys shaded your way, how many guys do you trust to dribble around, through, not turn the ball over, and get the ball across half court safely in that situation? How many guys on this roster do you trust? It's Steph, absolutely. And then you say, maybe Jimmy Butler. Like, that's not really his strong suit, but he's generally smart enough and, good enough in that spot. You throw Jimmy in there. And then beyond that, you say, Draymond's not the greatest dribbler. That's a tough spot for him. DeAnthony Melton, like, all right, he's probably next on that list. And then it's like Pat Spencer. Like, that's 4 guys, and on 2 of them, you're kind of like, well, maybe. Not really. So the Warriors need more ball handlers. And then as we get to New Year's resolutions for the Warriors, I know so many people are talking about what they should get for Kuminga and the impending trade that I believe is going to happen at some point. And a lot of people are talking about they need a true big. Trading for a center for me is, I don't think it's that likely. And that if you trade for a center, you're going to have to trade away a center because you got Quentin Post, right? You've got Trace Jackson Davis. You've got Al Horford. Like, you have 3 centers. Whether you think they're real true centers or not isn't, I guess, is a fair conversation to have. But you have 3 centers. If you're going to trade for one of those guys, maybe multiple of those guys are going to be on their way out. I think they just need a wing that can handle the ball. Someone that can play the 3, maybe even the 2, a bigger 2 that can handle the basketball. That's what the Warriors need. They need somebody that keeps Podziemski coming off the bench, that probably even pushes Moses Moody back to the bench, or maybe Moses is involved in the trade. I don't know. You just need somebody that can play the 2 or the 3, has some length from the wing spot, that can dribble the basketball. Ideally, they can shoot. And I know I'm talking about a lot of characteristics, which is why this player is kind of difficult to imagine. The one that stands out, you just saw him, Michael Porter Jr. He is tall. He can shoot. Not the best ball handler, but has the ball in his hands often enough. I generally don't think he's like I know he won a championship with the Nuggets. I generally think he isn't the smartest in terms of his shot selection, and that I think would drive Steve Kerr crazy at times. But there's no doubt they need shooting. They absolutely need shooting. It's why I was so big on the idea of making a trade for Cam Johnson, which, oddly enough, was the Michael Porter Jr. trade between the Nets and the Nuggets. The Nuggets got rid of MPJ and got Cam Johnson. Now, Cam has really struggled to shoot the ball so far this year, but he's got length. Maybe not the best dribbler, but he can shoot, hasn't yet this year, but is a really good shooter over the course of his career and is a good defender. Those are the kinds of players the Warriors need. Length, defense, shooting, ball handling. I know I just kind of laid out the characteristics of a really, really good player in today's NBA, but that's what the Warriors need. So my New Year's resolution for the Warriors, at least one of them, is the Kuminga trade has to net you a ball handling wing. That's my New Year's resolution. That should be your target. I know a lot of people are going to say, how could you say that they need a big? And I get that. If you get a great big, by all means, go do it. I don't think there's a big available that's going to make you want to play them over Quentin Post and Al Horford and Trace Jackson-Davis consistently. I just don't think that's going to be available. There might be some wings available that at least can do a couple of those things that I mentioned. On the text line, the Boxer and Gerson Work Injury Attorneys text line, the 510 says, how about Jeremy Grant? Jeremy Grant fits a couple of those characteristics a little bit. He's making a lot of money from Portland. His contract is absurd if you go and look at the money. He was a decision by Portland and their front office that was made before Dame left for Milwaukee as a way to try to convince to Dame, see, we're spending money to build a team around you, Dame. Stay here, please. And they drastically overpaid Jeremy Grant. And now they're kind of stuck with that contract. And I'm going to bring it up. I think it might be towards the end of that deal. He signed a 5-year, $160 million deal. No, he still has next year and then a player option. So he's still got plenty of time, but making $32 million this year, $34 million next year. That lines up relatively easily with what Kuminga's making, and you add a piece or two on top of that. And that you can make that work monetarily. You can make that work, absolutely. Now, he's not the great outside shooter and not the great ball handler, but he is a threat offensively and not a terrible defender. I think that is kind of in the archetype a little bit of what the Warriors would be looking for, in my opinion. Probably a little bit more ball handling would be my main gripe with Jeremy Grant. But I think 5-1-0, you're thinking kind of in the right frame of mind. We'll see how that plays out. But that's New Year's resolution number one for me, is the Kuminga trade, which I am very confident it's coming at some point. Again, he can be traded about 2 weeks from today. January 15th is when he can legally be traded. A trade has to happen before February 5th at noon Pacific. That's the trade deadline. At some point between those two dates, I believe a Kuminga trade will happen. My New Year's resolution, my hope, my wish for the Warriors is the big player you get back in that deal, the headliner, is a wing that can handle the basketball. And then ideally, they can also shoot a little bit from the outside, and they're not, a major negative on defense. That would be my wish for the Warriors. But I think their biggest thing that they're missing is a ball handler, another ball handler, to take pressure off of Steph. And so in moments where you're in Toronto and with length, they're throwing double teams at you in the backcourt, it doesn't have to all fall on Steph every single time. That is my wish for the Warriors. I got a handful for Steve Kerr, and if you guys want to weigh in as well, give me a call, shoot me a text, 888-957-9570. We have a little less than 10 minutes left before we get on out of here on this New Year's Eve, so if you want to weigh in, do so now. Again, 888-957-9570. That's also the number for the Boxer and Gerson Work Injury Attorneys text line. And I've got the YouTube chat up as well, youtube.com/957thegame. New Year's resolutions for Steve Kerr specifically. We were talking a little bit about this earlier. I think for Steve Kerr, one thing I would tell him is to be willing to adjust and to lean into the strengths of your best players. And I think the Warriors have been doing this a little bit more. We were talking about this in terms of the style of offense the Warriors like to run and how I think we've seen a little bit of a change, partially because of the turnovers that has kind of forced a change. But we've seen the Warriors kind of just say, you know what, screw the motion offense, screw the read and react. In this moment, this is a big possession, a big stretch of basketball. Let's just give the ball to Jimmy and let him kind of direct traffic and let him figure something out offensively. I think the Warriors need to be more willing to do that more often in the future. That's New Year's resolution number one, in my opinion, for Steve Kerr. I also think New Year's resolution number 2 for Steve Kerr is also something I think he has shifted towards the end of 2025, but he has to lean into it in 2026. It is just simply play the guys that are playing well, right? I was confused as hell when Pat Spencer got a DNP in Toronto versus the Raptors. That game was calling for ball handling, and he never got an opportunity to play. That made no sense to me. There was kind of the jockeying of Will Richard and whether he was going to be in the rotation here and there, or if it was going to be consistent. I think Steve Kerr has to lean into playing the guys that are playing well, forgetting about what a player has accomplished in the NBA. I remember a couple of weeks ago when he said Buddy Hield, or actually not Buddy Hield, that was the implication. He was saying Will Richard was not playing currently because he's a rookie and there are veterans who have, accomplished a lot in this league. That's why they're playing over Will Richard. He has benched of late Buddy Hield, and he's playing Will Richard more. Keep doing that. Absolutely keep doing that. Play who you think is going to help you win basketball games. And frankly, the way that we've all watched someone like Buddy Hield play and someone like Will Richard play of late, I don't imagine there's many people out there who think that Buddy Hield would help the Warriors win more basketball games right now than someone like Will Richard. So it is lean into playing the hot hand and just continuing to do that. And then the last one that I have for Steve Kerr is don't make promises you can't keep. And this kind of goes hand in hand with what I just talked about. One of these is Jonathan Kuminga related. And so let's rewind for a sec. You remember when the season began and Moses Moody was injured to begin the season? He was going to start because he was the starter alongside Steph and Jimmy and Draymond at the end of last regular season. And they rode off into the sunset together with a great regular season. And Moses Moody was a part of that. Podziemski was also in that starting group. But as a result of what happened to close last season, Moody was going to start again to begin the season. But then he got hurt at the end of the preseason and missed the first couple of games of the regular season. So what did Steve Kerr do? He said, you know what? We're going to give Kuminga a shot. And Kuminga began the season starting. And he played great. So good that after a couple of games, Steve Kerr said, you know what? He deserves it. He's playing well, so well that we're going to commit to Kuminga in the starting lineup going forward. Right? And then what happened? After a couple of, rougher performances, Kuminga getting hurt was also part of it, but after a couple of rougher performances, Kuminga kind of fell out of the starting lineup group, still was in the rotation, but wasn't starting anymore. After Kerr said just a couple of games before that, we're committed to that being our group and Kuminga starting. And then the same thing just happened after Kuminga went through his initial spell of DNPs, CDs, which is did not play, coach's decision. And then there was that stretch where the Warriors had a lot of days off after that road trip where they beat Cleveland and then they beat Chicago and then they returned home and they had like those 4 days off and there were all those practices. And Steve Kerr at a practice, post a practice, was asked about Kuminga and how he's been handling not playing. And Steve Kerr said he's handled it great. He deserves to be back in the rotation. I'm going to play him again. And Kuminga played 10 minutes in that game in Phoenix and has not played since. Was out sick for one, but still has not played since. After Steve Kerr, said, I'm going to get him back in the rotation. He's got to play. And I can imagine from Kuminga's perspective how frustrating that might be. Your coach says one thing and seemingly does another. I think it's also happened to Will Richard and probably also to Pat Spencer. Like, Pat's playing great. I need to play him. But then the minutes are inconsistent. And this is also a rotation construction problem, right? This is a situation where you have not a lot of surefire guys and you kind of have to search. So you're kind of forced to play certain guys here and certain guys there, and you're kind of searching for a combination that works. And because there's so many potential combinations, it's hard to find that one that does work. My suggestion, though, would just be don't make promises that you don't feel comfortable that you can keep. And I think Steve Kerr's made a number of, I guess maybe calling them promises aren't entirely fair, but has made a number of statements publicly that suggest he's going to do one thing and then he doesn't do the other. I'm not saying he can't not do that. I just think from a player perspective, that's got to be a little frustrating. So that would be one of my resolutions as well for Steve Kerr and the Warriors. But, they are going into the new year with a bit of momentum. They've won 5 of their last 6. This was a winning road trip. They had to go 2-1 at least on this trip. 2-1, in my opinion, was a par. It was what you expected in Toronto, in Brooklyn, in Charlotte. Those Brooklyn and Charlotte games should always be wins. Toronto is kind of one of the surprises of the NBA so far this year. They were off to an amazing start. They've struggled a little bit more of late. It was absolutely a game that you should have won, considering you were up 12 in the fourth quarter, up 7 with like a couple of minutes left, and you lose that basketball game. But 2-1 on the road trip, you'll take it. That's par. It's not a bogey at all. It's not a birdie, but it's par, and you'll take that, and you'll move on. 2-1 on the trip. You've won 5 of your last 6. Now you return home for 10 of your next 11, and you don't leave the state of California for 3 weeks until Thursday, January 22nd, when you're in Dallas taking on Clay, Cooper Flagg, and the Mavs. Until then, all in the state of California and 10 of 11 at home. Up next for the Warriors, OKC on Friday at 7. The Jazz on Saturday at also 7. Interesting time there on Saturday. Normally the Saturday games are 5:30. That is a 7 o'clock game, though, on Saturday on a back-to-back. Warriors given the extra 2 hours, hour and a half, to prepare for that back-to-back, as opposed to playing 7 o'clock Friday, 5:30 Saturday. It's 7 o'clock both nights. Then on Monday next week in LA versus the Clippers. Then at home for 8 consecutive games. Milwaukee, Sacramento, Atlanta, and Portland. Then New York, that's the Knicks. Charlotte, Miami, and Toronto is the Warriors' next 11 games. They're headed home, or they are going to stay for a gigantic portion of the month of January. All right. That'll do it for an extended edition of Warriors Wrap-Up today. Thank you so much for tuning in. Really appreciate all the interactions on the phone line, on the text line, on the YouTube chat as well. It's been fun hanging out with you for the last couple of hours, and it's been great doing these Warriors Wrap-Up shows all 2025 here on 95.7 The Game. So much more coming up in 2026. Happy New Year to all out there. Stay safe. Have fun. I will talk to you in 2026. And yes, I will pay it off. I see it on the YouTube chat. Let's get a win tomorrow, Ducks. Am I right? Let's do that against Texas Tech. All right, that'll do it for us today. Thank you so much for tuning in. For Cam Williams, for Steven Risotto, I'm Mark Grandy signing off. Happy 2026. Have a good and safe New Year. We'll talk next year on 95.7 The Game.
Yeah! Tonight!
Makita knows that pros never settle, and neither do we.